Mike DeCourcy joins us. Mike, I was actually on the golf course during the totality, first time in 6 months, but it was wild. It was wearing sunglasses, and finally I was like, hey, take these off. I'm like, it's starting to get dark out here. And then when it hit, it was like, wow. It was kind of wild. It looked like sunset. The horizon was lit up. It was crazy. And someone pointed out, did you hear the birds chirping like it was morning? I'm like, no, I did not notice that. But yeah, kind of crazy. What was it like out in Arizona?
You see my room right now in the background? Yeah. That's what it looked like to me. I had a break between BTN shows, and so I laid down on my bed, and I didn't really go to sleep, but I just kind of relaxed for that period, and so I missed the eclipse.
Well, you didn't miss much. It got dark for about 4 minutes, and that was it. I'll be honest with you. All the people that drove from, all the states around, how far around, and all the money it was costing. I'm like, man, I wouldn't have driven to Evansville for it, but I guess they enjoyed it. So, oh well. Another eclipse for the Big Ten in the national championship as the Big Ten comes away without a title again. Haven't won one since Michigan State in 2.5 decades now, but UConn was a force that not many people outside of West Lafayette expected to see this game go any different way. And for the various reasons that exactly how it laid out, it was Zach Edey, and that was it, as UConn and their elite cast shut Purdue's ancillary cast down. Zach Edey, 37, was he at 37? 37? The rest of his team combined for 23 points.
Yeah, I did not think that UConn was going to do a lot of double teaming. That was one I got right. I figured they would play him relatively straight up because, in large part, I mean, they have a 7-2 guy, so why not say, okay, we can deal with Edey one-on-one, and let's not let ourselves be beaten by 3-point shots. They knew that Purdue had a lot of different guys who could make those. Lance Jones, Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis, Braden Smith, all very capable, if not excellent, 3-point shooters. And they decided, UConn decided that because they have such dynamism on the perimeter, great positional size, that they would be able to effectively turn UConn toward the basket. And what's interesting about that is it was the exact same strategy that Purdue had used specifically with DJ Horn of NC State 2 days earlier. That Horn was able to get shots off, but wasn't able to get any off, or almost any, at the 3-point line, or almost any quality looks. He did fire multiple times, but only made a couple. It was a lot similar to that. The difference being that that's not really Purdue's best game, going to the rim. They don't really have players who excel at that with this group. I think Cam Heide and especially Miles Colvin will become great attacking on the rim, but they weren't very capable of it yesterday. It just wasn't time. They didn't play enough this year to go into a game like this with great confidence. Fletcher Lawyer was able to get the ball to the rim, but wasn't able to finish. Braden Smith was able to get the ball to the rim, but I thought needed to be more decisive about making plays on the perimeter when he got deep. Maybe have some screens set for guys like Fletcher or Lance Jones so that they could get openings on the perimeter when they were able to get to the rim, but they weren't really able to conjure anything like that. And they wound up in a 2-point battle against a team that was able to get points, often 3 at a time. And then I thought that what really one of the things that did surprise me was UConn's inability to control defensive rebounds. They were almost, I think it was the final tally on the boards was 19-14 on UConn's offensive glass. So Purdue got 19 and UConn got 14. I mean, that's almost a 43% offensive rebounding rate. That's just not good for Purdue to allow that. And so what essentially was happening is they were getting first shot stops, which is the objective when you're defending. Get the first shot stop and then get the defensive rebound and then go. And they were getting those stops, but they weren't getting the rebound. I did not see that part coming. Obviously, UConn's very dynamic, but Mason Gillis was beaten to balls on multiple occasions. Lance Jones was beaten to balls. Lance was a little bit better than some others. They just were not able to get to the defensive rebound and secure them. And that became probably the biggest problem in the entire game. And it's interesting because people talk a lot about the Big Ten in the championship game. Offensive rebounding is what beat Michigan in 2013. That and one of the worst calls in the history of the NCAA championship game. But in the end, that was a huge factor of Shane Bohannon beating them up on the offensive boards in 2013. And then last night, it was everybody for UConn. It wasn't just one big, strong guy like Shane Bohannon. It was a bunch of guys crashing the glass, getting offensive rebounds, getting long rebounds, and making it so that UConn had to guard even more than they already had.
Yeah, it was certainly no one knew exactly how it was going to play out this game, but we knew where the crux was going to be, or at least I thought I did because I know everything. No, just because we knew that Edey was going to get his. It's just too hard in college to stop him. Although having Klingon, we knew that was going to be a different challenge because he's a very athletic 7'2". He's not just a post up guy. He's athletic. He's got length. I didn't expect him to be blocking Edey a lot just because of his strength and whatnot. But I didn't expect UConn to be able to completely shut down Purdue like that. Right. But this is 2 years in a row that we've seen Purdue's guards wilter when it matters. Now, I know last year there were freshmen and so they had growth. And so that's why coming back this year, their expectations were that was behind them. And it happened yet again. And it's not a knock on Braden Smith or Fletcher Lawyer or Lance Jones, but even Lance Jones didn't really get a lot done. But to me, that's the difference between elite and not elite. And one of the things that I found in researching a question for someone is that the last 5 national champions had a minimum of 4 NBA draft picks on their roster at the time, and Purdue has 1. And that makes a difference. When you have elite talent, it's just they're elite for a reason.
Oh, I mean, I've said that for years. And Jim, there has been no national champion in college basketball without a first-round pick on its roster since, you may remember this, 1987.
1987.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fact. And so I talk to people a lot about in advance of the NCAA tournament about picking a bracket. And, I'm picking Houston. Oh, really? Well, enjoy Monday night when your team isn't playing or isn't going to win because Houston's not winning it. Not that Houston group. They didn't have pros. Jamal Shedd's going to play in the league, but no one's taking him in the first round. They didn't have it. Purdue did, UConn did, but UConn was richer in that quality. They have at least 2 first-round picks. Cam Spencer will be a pro. Tristan Newton will be a pro. Samson Johnson might be as well eventually. They had more talent. There's no question about that. I'm not sure that I can concur with the wilt idea of the Purdue guards. It's much different than a year ago. A year ago, you were wilting against Fairleigh Dickinson. This time, you're wilting against the most dominant, the literal most dominant college basketball team of the expanded bracket era. They won their 6 NCAA tournament games by an average of more than 23 points a game. The most prior to last night was the best team in maybe college basketball history, 1996 Kentucky, which won by 21.5. That's how dominant UConn was in this tournament. And it wasn't just, okay, they beat their 16 seed by 100 and then everybody else by 5. This was, they beat every single team by at least 13 points. They beat every team. When they beat Northwestern as badly as they did, really drummed them in the first half, and then Northwestern came back in the second half and played them a little bit better than even. Who knew that like a 17-point result by Northwestern was going to be one of the best that anybody in this tournament did against the Huskies? So I think that I thought Fletcher Lawyer played great up until last night. Last night, I did not think his decision-making was ideal. I thought that Braden Smith played great it really relatively played great last night, with the exception of making some decisions that weren't positive. Getting sucked into long twos early in the second half was a mistake. I don't know that if everything had gone right in those first 4 or 5 minutes of the second half, we'd have had a hugely different result. We might have had a hugely different game. We had a great game for the first, 10, 12 minutes. We still had a good game at halftime. And then UConn took over early in the second half and basically made it so that Purdue was chasing the game the rest of the year. And the rest of the night. And you saw maybe 8 or 9 minutes left in the game. Matt Painter put on a press. When Matt Painter presses, you know that things are not good because that certainly is antithetical to the Purdue style. They're not going to press you unless they're desperate. And in that circumstance, desperate was an appropriate response.
How does Danny Hurley lose Coach of the Year to Kelvin Sampson? Actually, it has nothing to do with Kelvin Sampson. Let me just say, how does Dan Hurley lose Coach of the Year? Not only is he going to win back-to-back national titles, he did it with, in essence, a half different team.
More than half. And I think honestly, Jim, it was laziness on the part of the voters. Laziness. They won last year.
I want to see every list so I can talk to every person who voted against Hurley.
The Naismith Award went to Dan Hurley. The Sporting News Award went to Dan Hurley. CBS Sports, Dan Hurley. They were the people who thought it through. Kelvin Sampson, phenomenal year, phenomenal coach. But you lose 75% of your scoring and come back and are better than the team that won the national championship. There are not many things in college basketball now that are unprecedented. We've been playing the NCAA tournament for more than 90 years. So there are not a lot of things that are going to be unprecedented. But this was something we had never seen before. We had never seen a team go and lose 75% of their scoring and then come back and do it again. Now, I say that with great confidence, a little bit less precision than I'd like because I can't find stats on 45-46 Oklahoma State or 44-45. I can't find the stats on their players for that year. But they returned Bob Curlin, and in that era, Bob Curlin scored almost half the points himself. So I'm pretty confident that it never happened before. But from Kentucky 48-49 to now, no one had ever done that. No one had ever lost 75% of their scoring and come back and done it. UCLA, during their run of 7 straight, they lost Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from 1969 to 70. Didn't lose 75%. They lost Sidney Wicks from 71 to 72. Didn't lose 75% of their scoring. The Duke team of 91 returned almost entirely intact in 92. The Florida team of 06 returned entirely intact in 2007. That's the difference. And it was interesting because Dan Hurley knew all of this. And I don't know if he's been reading Mike DeCourcy or whether he just had, but he had all the facts when he was asked about repeating last night. He knew that what they had done was unprecedented. And he deserves all the credit in the world and a lot more Coach of the Year trophies than he received.